Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me today is a brother that I had the pleasure of knowing for a little bit over a year now. We've been a part of some men empowerment events together, and so that was where our initial connection has been. He was a phenomenal brother to have an opportunity to meet up with, and we've stayed connected, of course, throughout the realm of social media, checking in on each other from time to time, seeing how we're doing. This brother, of course, he's from my hometown of Chicago. So we got Chicago represented on the podcast today. But this young man, he is an author. He's a motivational artist, a mentorship specialist, inspirational youth speaker. But most importantly, he is a man of God. And this brother's taking time out of his very busy schedule to hang out with us for a little while with the hopes of inspiring and encouraging and uplifting in the sharing of his story with us. He's going to drop some gems on us, a little bit of wisdom, and with the hopes, again, of course, of encouraging people, particularly in the area of those who might be struggling with some challenges and dealing with the adversities of life and things of that nature. So it is my privilege and honor, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce my brother and dear friend, Mr. Reggie Bates. Reggie, thank you so much, my brother, for being on the
Thank
show.
you, thank you, thank you. That was one heck of an introduction too, man. My goodness. You make me sound like I'm somebody.
You are somebody, man. That's why you on here, man. You are somebody, and I'm just
Appreciate you.
thankful, man, that you accepted the invite and taking time out. And I'm excited to learn just another layer about you and what makes you Reggie, the man that you are, and the God given talent that you're operating in right now, walking in your
Amen.
purpose and doing your thing, man. So it's a wonderful thing, but. Before we jump into our segments, I do want to give the audience an opportunity to learn a little bit about you, kind of a general introduction, if you will, who you are, where you're from, what you do, kind of give them a taste of who is Reggie Bates.
Got you, will do. So again, Reggie is the name. And I am a Chicago native, true and through, South Sider to be exact. If y'all know
There you go.
our beefs in Chicago, but I've lived on all sides of Chicago at this point in my life. I'm a jack of all trades. Being single with no kids, I was a risk taker. I've been able to hop into many careers, and so I've been a motivational speaker now for about 12 years. I've been a mentoring specialist for about 11. But I've also had the pristine honor of being an educator for about 6 years, where I wrapped up my time as a teacher serving as a director of fine arts for the University of Chicago, where I revamped their entire fine arts program. I've been in workforce initiatives and workforce development spaces, helping folks learn job readiness skills. And even now, what I do for the second largest transit company in the country, I just help connect people to jobs in the trades and on construction projects and things of that nature. Facilitator, life coach, just overall lover of people, man. When God puts something on my heart, when an idea hits my mind, when the spirit and the mind connects, I go for it. And so that's why when I go over my resume, folks are like, "How are you able to do all of this?" And honestly, it's just by faith. That's it. So
Yes.
that's a little bit about myself, and I'm sure I'll share more as we continue to go through this conversation.
Awesome, awesome. And you hear him say that that's just a little bit about himself. That little bit was a lot of bit right there. But I love the fact that you pointed out when people ask you, how is all of this possible? How it's almost unbelievable to a certain, to a certain degree. But that's only unbelievable if you're looking at it through worldly eyes. But when you're
Come
looking
on.
at it through godly eyes, no, this is just the scratch of the surface. He just gave you a snippet of what he's doing and what is still to come. So just the fact that you lean into your faith, man, that you recognize that God is the source of making it all happen, that in itself is half the battle right there. And that's why God is opening up all the doors that he's opening up for you and assigning all the work. And I say work lightly because not that you don't work hard at it, but because you're walking in your purpose and walking in your gift, it doesn't feel like work. It
At
feels
all.
like what you're supposed to be doing. And so you don't wake up in the morning dreading getting to it because you understand the impact in what you're doing. So awesome stuff, awesome stuff. So with that said, man, I'm a firm believer that when we talk about our stories, when we talk about our journeys, we would be remiss if we didn't take a moment or two to just kind of reflect back to where it all begins. As you said, South Side of Chicago, born and raised, born and bred. But we have some listeners today that may not know about what that life is like in
Mhm.
Chicago, and specifically, they don't know what your experience was in particular, because we all have our very unique and special experiences that really serve as the foundational basis to how our journey is going and those paths that it's leading us down. So, with that said, I want to take a few moments for us to kind of delve back to that time, what it was like for you, if you would. Share with us, what was it like for you growing up, fond memories that you have about it, as well as if there was any challenges along the way that you would like to make mention that are relevant to that conversation, to just kind of share again the foundational basis of where your story starts.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I mean, I was born a challenge, if I can say the least. So I am my mother's fourth child of six, right? And so although I'm a middle boy, I didn't get the traditional single parent situation. My father, although him and my mother's relationship ended, he was still in my life, right? But I come from traumatized people, and hurt people, and so there were a lot of things that my mom had to learn during that transition. There's a lot of things my father had to learn in those transitions, and a lot of times, when parents are in the midst of learning while parenting, sometimes the babies, they get a little hurt. And so I had a good lifestyle for the most part. My dad was able to remarry, and my bonus mom loves me like her own. My mother was able to remarry, and my bonus dad loves me like his own. And so I don't have that, taboo story of the single parent household, but I do still have just that story of black folks working through some things, because having six siblings, some folks had to experience a little bit more than others, and my mother comes from a family of six, and we stay relatively close. My father and his side of the family were only a 15-minute drive, so but it was a tale of two lifestyles. We thought my dad's side had the money, and then growing up, it was like, maybe not so much, And then I learned what my mom's side made, and I was like, man, I think we made the money. We just had poor money management, right?
Mm.
So it was figuring out all of those spaces where we would live in a little quiet part of the hood.
Mhm.
Where, yeah, you had your drug dealers, people would get hurt, people would get robbed, people got killed, but on our block,
Mhm.
we were good, and so I was able to have the nuance of the hood games, right? Ding dong ditch, tag, getting chased by other people's dogs, right? So I was able to have those, but also when me and my cousins wanted to ride some bikes around the neighborhood, we didn't fear not coming home,
Mm.
right? And so that was the lifestyle that I truly had growing up. It came with its trauma, that came with its afflictions, but as I look back over my life, right, as we like to say, I can truly say that, brother, I've been blessed. Opportunities have come my way my entire life, and I've just been a risk taker as a middle boy of six. Said if
Mhm.
someone's gonna take the risk, it might as well be me. And so, yeah, man, that's my beginning, in a nutshell.
That is awesome, man. That and I love the fact that you had a family dynamic that, like you said, it wasn't perfect in the sense that my parents stayed together, but then just the fact that God set it up in such a way to where, despite their relationship coming to an end, they both have an opportunity to have new lives, and then everything just sort of seamlessly works itself out, to where you're getting shown the love from both sides of the family, despite that momentary glitch, if you will, of a split taking place. I love that, and obviously, of course, you being from Chicago, my being from Chicago, I can visualize automatically as you're talking about the different things about being outside and doing all the fun stuff that's just kind of a traditional life of a kid on the south side of Chicago, what we did at that time. One thing in particular that resonated with me is, while you spoke very, very highly, if you will, about, hey, I had a decent life, didn't really have much complaint about stuff. It was like you acknowledged the fact that the surroundings were there that come with inner city living. So, yeah, there was still the drugs and the gangs and all of the mayhem and mess, but it worked out in such a way that even though all of that was around me, even though I was seeing it, witnessing it, experiencing it, my space, my block, my situation, for some reason, and I'm saying that, jokingly, if you will, for some reason my space wasn't touched. my space was covered. I didn't have the fear of going to and from, even though that was all around me. And so I'm riding on that point to say, you got to understand, to my listeners, that this is not by accident. It's not by accident that you can live on a street in the midst of all of that going on,
Mm-hmm.
but somehow you avoided that mayhem. You avoided being in the gang. You avoided being in the mess and the foolishness, or all that kind of stuff. Somehow you were protected. And I'm saying that somehow, really telling you that that wasn't nothing but, God's covering on you to protect. Because the reality is that, and I'm sure you have that testimony as well, that there were people that we knew growing up, friends around us,
Oh,
that
absolutely.
perhaps it was just even on the next block, that they were
Absolutely.
not so fortunate to avoid those moments, that they may have even come from two-parent homes that never split up and they still didn't avoid
Mm-hmm.
those kind of things. So that's nothing but God's hand on that. And then the last point I wanted to catch on to what you said. I know you made the reference to, hey, I was just one of them kids, that I was just a risk taker, but I wanted to, as I heard you say it, and I knew what you meant by it, but I wanted to say, he said risk taker to my listeners, but what he was is he was a faith taker. He was a faith taker. He just
Yeah.
trusted that this wasn't just something I was just going to put out there and just see what happened. He went into these life situations, these moments of opportunity, actually believing that it was going to happen. He may not have known how it was going to go down,
That's the
but he
one.
just felt like it's going to happen somehow, some way. And again, that's just a testament to your faith, man. And so that's one of the things I love about you, man, of many things, that just shows your growth and your maturity, even at an early age, that you saw the power in what you could become, in spite of what may be going around you, what may be happening, that you had that early confidence in yourself. And I would say in part that I'm sure your parents, to a certain degree, had a lot to do with instilling that in you,
Yeah.
and building that up in you, so where you leaned into your faith and you had that self confidence to get out there and not be concerned
Yeah.
about the outcome, but be more wrapped into the process of it all. Go
And I
ahead.
had to, right? Because, that was of course, a snappy overview, but, you know, a lot of things happen, and lots of things happen in Black households, not just Black, all
Mm-hmm.
households, right?
All hustle.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, of course, I can harbor on the time where my stepdad had lost his job, and then my mother had to take up three jobs to keep everything okay, right? But, I'm big on nothing happens to you, it all happens for you. You got to figure out why. And so we did have some hardships strike my home. We can talk about the molestation that happens in the household. We can talk about people breaking into the house when we're not home, right? We could talk about those things. But when we look back over it all, to know
Yeah.
that there are folks who gets their homes broken into where they don't get to tell the story,
Mm-hmm.
right? There are folks who lose their jobs and they don't get the resources and the flat platforms to say, hey, I made it, because they're still going through that storm 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later. It is just a blessing. It is a blessing. It is a pure honor that, although tragedy struck whenever it did, that we were able to recover and elevate from those moments.
Wow. Wow. Very well said, man. And that's so much truth in that, so much wisdom already. And we just getting started, man. You already are schooling us on just understanding the dynamics of that and what could be versus what actually took place. And reaffirming the fact that just because you go through stuff, again, it doesn't mean that it's the end. It doesn't mean that there's not a blessing in that. Because like you said, just even using the example of somebody being broken into, there's some who didn't get a chance to actually tell the story of recovery or redemption, or bounce back. So to be able to do that is definitely not something that you want to water over or just pass by as, nonchalantly, but actually take stock in it. And it's a process. It's a learning
Mhm.
journey that we, go through before we really see, there are many things that happen years past that now when I look at it in perspective, I have a totally different approach to it, a totally different, like, or those aha moments, like
Yeah.
that's why. Now it makes sense. Now the dots are getting connected. So good stuff, man. Good stuff. So as you know, Reggie, when you're going through your childhood, of course, eventually making your way into adulthood, as you stated, there's a lot of different challenges, obstacles, hurdles that come your way. But every now and then, in the midst of life storms that cross our path, there are some storms in particular that are going to hit a little bit heavier than others. Maybe so much to the degree that when you're in that moment, when you're in that storm and that period of adversity, you're actually questioning, how am I supposed to get up out of this? I might be really good at navigating and shifting and moving and pivoting under normal circumstances, but these circumstances right here are not normal circumstances. This pressure, this weight is not normal. And I'm confused. I'm concerned. I'm worried. I'm anxious about it. I'm fearing.
Mhm.
So if you would tell us about a time when you found yourself in that type of situation where you didn't quite see a way out. You were doubting, you were questioning, as you refer to as a quote unquote risk taker who was, brave and courageous and going out there and doing your thing in most situations. Now you were in a situation where that wasn't working for you. That wasn't it was a different kind of feel, it was a different kind of vibe. What was that situation like for you that you're going to share with us? Kind of walk us through it, and what was ultimately that turning point where you kind of began to see some light at the end of the tunnel coming up out of that situation?
Mhm. Mhm. Man, absolutely. And I have so many of these, and so I'm gonna do my best to to try to narrow it down, because a lot of them had the same theme, right? And this is just the theme of, a knockdown is only a knockout if you lay there, right? Because
Mm,
that started for me in high school, where I had this thing inside of me. I knew I wasn't like my other siblings. I wasn't like everybody else in school, because I was this very smart kid and the talented, in the top 10 of my class. But I was an athlete, top captain of all these teams, but it was something else that was burning inside of me. And so my senior year of high school, I decided to become the me I was in the shower. And what I mean by that is all the singing I was doing in the shower, the rapping, the dancing, the orchestrating performance. I said, hey, my senior year, I got to go for it. And
mm,
so I took a risk and I signed up for a theater class. And that very first day of theater class, my teacher, Yvonne Nesbitt, rest her soul, Mama Nezzy, she put us all in this room. She waited till the bell rang. She closed her door. She said, hey, listen, we're about to do improv because I need to see what y'all got.
mm.
And so many folks froze up, and I was one of those people as well. And she said, I know no one's going to volunteer, so I put y'all names in this hat before you walked into the classroom. And so now your heart's beating out of your chest. And I was the fourth person to go, and I decided to wing it, where I did this Kevin Hart impersonation. And from there, that moment of me taking that risk, going into that theater class, her pushing me immediately, by the end of my senior year, I was in 3 plays. I directed a play. I won a scholarship for theater, was able to take my school to state for theater. I didn't even know there was competitive theater competitions, right? And so that was a moment of the knockdown being, my family's like, hey, you probably shouldn't do that theater stuff because people are going to think you're gay, or people are going to think you're this. And my family started to put their fears
Mm,
onto me. And so pushing past my family's fears, I was able to get the skill set needed to be able to stand in front of people daily and tell my story. It happened again going into college. I was the first person in my family to ever go to college. Folks said, hey, you're smart, and I'll give you my family nickname. I'm one of the mans, right, of the black family. So it was man, and I got shortened to man as I got older. But they're like, man, you're smart. I think you can get you a good job here. You can help your family out here. You don't necessarily got to go. Why would you go so far away? But again, it was that thing, which I now know to be the Holy Spirit, burning inside of me, telling me this is where I needed to go. And so I went off to college. Folks were terrified. We were scared. We were crying. We didn't know what was going to happen. This was the first time I'd ever truly left my hometown. I did a few trips with family, but this was the first time I had to stand out on my own. But from that risk of going to college, right, I was able to pledge a fraternity, start a career as a speaker, get a degree, which opened the doors to all of these other things. And then this is the last one I'll give you. It happened again, this recurring thing of a knockdown is only a knockout if you lay there. I remember it was 2018. And at that point, I was partying hard because I was getting paid to throw parties and promote parties. I was getting paid to travel the world as a speaker. And so I really was a public success, but a private mess, because while I was putting so much life into people and speaking so much life, and I was living this lifestyle that so many people wanted to live, I wasn't okay in my body. I wasn't okay in my mind. And I couldn't understand how God was using me to help bring people out of depression while I was walking into it.
mm.
And it took a shedding process of people who only wanted me to perform versions of myself, right? I had to perform Reggie in a lot of spaces. I couldn't be my authentic self in a lot of spaces. I had to be the outspoken one, the extroverted one, the one that poured into people. I had to be that in a lot of spaces. And yes, I am those things, but I'm not just those things.
Mm.
And so in 2018, I went through a big depression where I had to lose so many people who wanted specialized versions of me because they didn't know how to handle the full, authentic me. I had to lose a lot of those people and it hurt. Right. So I left jobs because of this depression where it wasn't so easy for me to get a job because of my vast skill set and the pay range I was looking for, the pay range God was telling me, right? And so I had to take pay cuts to survive, right? But that was a humbling process for me. I had to lose friends who they wanted to party all the time. They just wanted to spend money and none of them would ask me how I was even doing as a person, right? So I had to lose those people, man. I had to lose so much to gain my right mind. And
Wow.
so that's, like I said, it's a few stories because God's going to keep putting a lesson in your face until you learn it. And so
Wow.
I had to learn the story of resilience. I had to learn how to shed people, whether it was a good
Mhm.
time or a bad time. I had to learn how when God said it's time to jump, you have to. And it just took me a series of events to learn it.
That man, that is an awesome story. I appreciate your transparency and sharing that because, I mean, this is a very realistic type of thing that people go through. It's like I got to wear this mask, I got to put on this face, I got to put on this image to, that people love about you. And like I said, it's not even that you're being fake. I mean, this is naturally who you are. But then there's that other side, and oftentimes I refer to this about, I've used this term even in church. When I've moderated, I've said, during prayer time that every now and then the encourager needs to be encouraged. Who
Good.
encourages the encourager? When you're that one who always puts the smiles on people's faces, who always has the right words to say, who always brings joy and laughter and fun and pleasure to the lives of others. What happens when you're not feeling so lit up and so filled up inside? Who do you go to? And you find yourself conflicted because you're just like, well, I don't want to let people down. I want to be that person that they are. But at some point, and this is how God plays this out, He lets you kind of go through that process, but it eventually gets to a point where something He's been trying to message to you all along is like, when do you love on you? When do you, as my stepdad used to say, when do you practice that healthy selfishness? When
Mm,
do you when do you stop trying to be a people pleaser?
mm,
Guilty. When you stop trying to do that, and when do you start instead living as the one that I created you to be, your true and
mm,
authentic self? When do you start doing that? Because what I'm trying to tell you is that when you do that, not only will you experience a happiness, a joy, a peace that you've never experienced before, but also the flip side of it is that it is going to require for you to, as you in your words, you had to do some shedding. And that meant
mhm,
I had to shed some stuff off of me, and that included shedding some folks off of me, some behaviors, some practices off. I had to shed that stuff off of me. And yeah, people may feel some kind of way about that. Oh, you acting funny. Oh, you think you this and that. We used to be boys. We used to do this and that. And again, trying to guilt you, or sometimes it even lends it even into the family. Family projecting on you what they think you should be, versus what God is telling you to be. And,
mhm,
like you said, it was a process, but eventually you made the connection and said, okay, I got to understand who I'm supposed to be listening to, even if it means that who I'm listening to is against what everybody else thinks that I'm supposed to be, everybody else says I'm supposed to do. And as you said, it was that humbling process that you had to go through, because that shedding does hurt.
It hurt.
Whether it's hurts you financially because now you had to take less in order to experience more,
Mhm,
or whether it meant that, again, separating from certain people in my life, certain practices, certain associations, things of that nature. It's always a hard process to go through. And so for my listeners, please understand that shedding process, no, we're not here to tell you that it's easy, that it's an overnight thing, that it's, any of those things. But it is a necessity, and I can even confess for myself, that that's a process that I continue to go through. Even as we speak today, the constant shedding. But as you shed, as you lean into more of what God has for you, and not again trying to be a people pleaser of the world, um, the things that open up for you, the opportunities that open up for you, the experiences that open up for you, that peace of mind that opens up for you. It's just different, and you don't know until you know.
That's it.
You don't know until you know. But that goes back to what you said earlier about the willingness to jump when God says jump, the willingness to leap when God says leap. I don't have to know all the details. All I have to know is who's the direction coming from. And
That's
if I
it.
know who the direction is coming from, and I know last time I checked, last time you checked, and incorrect. He's never made a mistake. He's never told me to do something and led me down a path of destruction. If I know this to be true, then why should I think that now this experience or the next experience or the one after that is going to be any different? Yeah,
Hmm.
it may be a little bit more difficult. It may be a little bit more
Hmm.
challenging. It may take a little bit more time than the last one.
It will.
But in the end, I still win. So, and sometimes, as simple as that sounds, it can be hard to process. But you have to, if you want to grow, in your maturity
Hmm.
spiritually, you have to just begin to just accept it and just walk in that and just go for it. And it's a learning process that I know
Yeah.
I continue to go through, and you as well. But
Absolutely,
that
because I call it Godfidence, right? Right. It's one thing
mm,
to have confidence. When you got Godfidence, it's like, yo,
I
how
love
dare
that.
I get stressed about this? Because I've
Yes,
I've been through
yes.
something like this already, and the end result is I win, right? Oh, how dare I be upset at this job? Like, come on, this ain't the
Mhm.
first job you've been upset at, and you know how this
Right.
is going to end. You're going to be pushed into your next, and so
Mm,
it's Godfidence because a Godfidence is being just strong in the reminder of how he shows up for you time and time
yes,
again to where you
yes.
ain't got to worry about the next now because
Hmm.
you know how the story goes. You win
Man,
every time.
love that. God for hey, you better write that down. To my listeners, write that down. I need to write that down. Godfidence. And the brother said earlier, you may be knocked down, but you're only knocked out if you stay down. If you just stay, you
That's
only
it.
knocked out if you stay there.
That's it. Knockdown is only a knockout if you lay there.
If you
That's
lay
it.
there, then yeah, you knocked out if you lay there. But if you don't lay there, you get back up. You keep fighting. You keep persevering. You're gonna be all right. So love that, man. Good stuff. Good stuff. So Reggie, when you do find yourself facing challenging times. I mean, of course, you've mentioned a few times that obviously were a little bit heavier and intense in nature, but the reality is that there are going to be some intensive storms of life, and then sometimes it's just the regular day to day stuff that we deal with. So, what I'm curious to know from you is when you do find yourself facing adversity, some challenging moment that today is just one of them days that some stuff is going on that you got to deal with, fool with, overcome, battle with, whatever that is. What is your process, your routine, your regimen, if you will, that you like to implement, that you like to follow, that kind of helps you work through challenging and difficult times in a healthy and productive type of way?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So I am a habitual venter, right? I know a lot of folks put bad stigmas on venting, and you don't know what that person's gonna go off and say. I don't worry about all that, right? And it's not just out of blind faith. It's just we whatever you put into you must come out, right?
Mm.
You drink some water, you're gonna have to go number one, right? You eat some food, you're gonna have to go maybe number two or three, right? Whatever three may be, right? And so whatever you put into yourself must come out. It's the same with the music, it's the same with the movies, it's the same with being a servant because as a servant we get so many energies, we have to hear a lot of heavy things to pray for folks over. In my workspace I've worked with youth, I still work with youth, and so you hear the nightmares, right, that they're living from their perspectives. But then I also work with the parents of youth, so then you get in that perspective, man. And what you'll learn is when you are a servant, God will send you people who will just dump on you and dump like some they just want you to listen, some they want you to pray, some they want you to figure out a solution, right? Like, I mean, people of faith, we just all need to get life coaching certifications because the moment you say I'm connected to the source, people start to come and dump on you, right? And so I'm a venter. Like, I am a person where I have my small conglomerate of people where I'm like, hey, I'm heavy today. I either need you to listen or I need you to respond, right? Because that's two things. Sometimes you got to vent just to get it out. And
Mm,
then other times you vent for solutions. And you, as the venter, have to be able to tell the listener which one you need.
mm.
Because nothing upsets me more when I just need to just get it out and then you start trying to give me your solutions. I'm not here for that. Sometimes I just got to get it out. but then vice versa, right? When I'm really confused and I do need some feedback, if you're just like, yeah. Now I'm gonna catch an attitude because I don't know if you're listening. So now I got to start quizzing you on what I said to see if you heard me, right? So that's a part of my process is I vent. I love to vent. I use choice words when I vent. I mean, if you ever want to hear pure comedy, let me be a bit overwhelmed to give me a space to vent because that's how venting happens for me.
Mm,
It's a joke. I'm serious, but it's a joke. And so after I vented, I then music. Music is gonna always be my go-to. I give myself space to listen to music, right? If it's not venting or music, therapy. Oh, I'm such an advocate for therapy. Like there are people on this planet who not only was tasked, right, by God with, hey, you're going to be a listener and you're going to pull people out as a profession. Then they go out and get the skill set to do it. How
mm.
dare we stop them from operating in their gifts, right? Like, go to therapy. That is what they do.
Yes, yes.
So I do those things, man. Cooking is therapeutic for me. So if ever I'm stressed, you know, you'll probably get a full course meal. All right. You want to know how stressed I am? Come to my house. Depending on how much eating you do, that'll let you know. You know. And then you need some space. Ty Tribbett has a song called "Only One Night," though, right? And he just says, if you want to cry, cry, do it. Go for broke. Only one night though. If you're gonna be sad, feel it. Only one night though. Because joy comes in the morning, right? And that's the whole thing of the song. So if I'm ever feeling so heavy, I lean into it. I will cry. I will curse. I'll do whatever. I'll get my ice cream. I'll stress eat. These are not healthy things, but I'm human. I've never said I
Hmm.
was perfect. So I allow myself, if I'm feeling heavy, I allow myself to feel it for a day, maybe even two. But I do not allow more than a 2-day maximum. By that second day, it's time to go to the gym. It's time to initiate the hard conversation because clearly it's still on my mind. It's time to clean up my house because depression got a way of cluttering your house. Because the more
Mm,
cluttered your house, the more cluttered your mind. So, no, I'll start to clean, right? But I never allow myself to wallow and self-loathe, right? I don't allow myself to wallow in those feelings for more than 2 days because you got to get up.
mm. Man, man, that is some powerful, powerful stuff right there. Like you said, and I'm just go from back to front
Mm-hmm.
because I
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things that I speak about all the time. Anybody who's listened to the show, been on the show, I speak about that tirelessly about it, that when you go through storms, there's still a human element to you. Yeah, we're speaking about God and leaning into God and having a relationship with God, but God never said that you can't, as you say, vent, to let it out. If it's that cry, if it's that anger, if that's that frustration, whatever that emotional thing that you need to do to get it up out of you, have that moment to get it up out of you because you are human. That's expected. That's okay. It's actually healthy for you to get it up out of you because if you're harboring it inside and with nowhere for it to go, that's just like containing poison inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
But then I love the fact that you reminded us, which is something that I try to do as well, is that while it's okay to release, at some point you got to turn that thing off. At some point you have to, now that I got it out and I compose myself, I wipe my face off and all that. Now, what am I going to do moving forward to progress from this situation? Where am I going to take it now? And so you spoke about whether it's having that difficult conversation, whether it's, making adjustments or plans or repositioning some things that are going on around me to be able to be in position to resolve whatever it is that challenge is that's before me. I think that is so, so key. And I love the fact that you leaned into that, man. And just, and then of course, just other things that you talk about, whether it's, outlets that you enjoy doing, whether it's cooking, whether it's listening to music, exercising, whatever it takes to clear your head, to free you of the emotions that might otherwise cloud your thinking. Now, once I've worked that through, now I can lock in on the solution. Now I can hear, if I'm praying, I can hear God's voice and to say, this is what you need to do. But if I'm all up in here, I'm all confused, I'm all sidetracked because I'm filled with emotions, I'm filled with that stuff inside of me that I haven't let out, then
Mhm.
I'm not going to hear anything or anybody. And I think too, one other thing that I wanted to mention, I love the fact that you distinguish that sometimes when we need people, then we have that circle of friends, if you will, that we need to talk to. Sometimes I only need you to listen to me, and sometimes I need you to actually give me some response, some insight as to how I should handle a situation. And so, if you're really truly being that supporter, that coming alongside person for me, I need you to understand what my need is. And if you're not clear about what that need is, ask me up front before I even start, so
Yeah.
that I give you what you came for. Sometimes we do run into the problem of trying to fix stuff when I didn't ask you to fix it. Or like you said, when I'm wanting you to help me with something and you say nothing. We need to be on the same page. And one of the part of my prayer I say every day is I thank God for the circle of people that are in my life that I know, not only love me unconditionally, but there are people that when I need some sound advice, that they're going to not only give me the godly advice that I need, but they're not going to tell me what I want to hear. They're going to tell me what I need to hear. And so they're going to keep it real for me. They're not just going to pacify me, just say what they think will make me feel good, but not necessarily what I need to process, to chew on a little bit, to implement. So those things are all important. So you hit all the hot buttons, man, and then some on that. But I love your routine, your process. So for somebody who's listening, that you don't currently have a thing that you lean into or work from,
Take it,
I don't think he has a problem with you taking a few snippets here and there to begin to
please.
build your regiment, your routine, if you will, of dealing with challenging times. Because if you're just going around holding it all in, or if you're just simply trying to always resolve something on your own, flying solo, those things don't typically work out well for you. And in the end, you might make the matter worse than what it was, or make it more blown up than what it even needed to be. So that's good stuff, man. So Reggie, if you had a chance, when you think about your experiences in life and things that you've gone through and learned from, if you could speak to the younger Reggie, or perhaps somebody right now that might be listening, that they are in a space where they fear taking risk. They fear leaning into that faith to walk into the unknown. They have some anxiety, some concerns about that their growth might mean letting go of some people and some places and some practices of the past. What would your words of encouragement or your words of inspiration to be for somebody that might be struggling with that, and they just need that guidance? They need, when you talked about needing that person to give them some steps to
Yeah.
take, some guidance, what would be that guidance for you, for somebody that's struggling with that, on how they should begin to navigate and proceed in dealing with the adversities and challenges of life, and also being able to just simply take a risk on themselves?
Yeah, yeah. So the first thing is, I tell this person to remind themselves that they are loved, right? And because that's the most basic level of, before you take a risk, you do something crazy. A lot of times we're scared to take risks because we fear disappointment,
Mm,
right? And so you really have to look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, like, I am loved. Whether I take the risk and I fail, I take the risk and I succeed, I am loved. If I don't do it today, even though I really, really want to, but my anxiety won today, I am loved. Because sometimes when we fall short, we equate falling short to no longer being loved, no longer being cared for, and it's like, nah, you just had a bad day, you had a bad moment. That's, I like to tell people, it takes about 3 to 7 seconds to create a moment. It's 24 hours in a day.
mm,
You're gonna let 7 seconds ruin an entire 24 hours? No. So remind yourself, you are loved. Because you
mm,
know that now this moment can't ruin my day. Because I know this failure that I view as a failure, people still love me regardless. So one, you're loved. Next, you are enough, even in your current space. right? Because those are the mental components that we need. A lot of us don't feel like we're good enough to take that risk. We're good enough to apply for that job. We're good enough to audition for that role. I don't think I'm good enough to try talking to this person, right? No, you are enough even in your current state, right? And so once we get the root of being loved, right? And then we get the boost of being enough, then I have to remind you that a champion doesn't wait for tomorrow when today's already here,
Mm.
right? And so now you love, you enough, cool. Do something about it today, even if you planned it out today. And because a plan is fine, a dream without a plan is nothing but good sleep. So even if you plan today, you're good, right? Even if you put your clothes on the bed to go to the gym today, that's good because that's more than what you've ever done before, right? But if you are going to win, right? If you're going to be a champion, you won't wait for tomorrow because today's already here. If
Mm.
you don't do the thing today, at least set the stage today. So you don't got to worry about setting the stage tomorrow. Tomorrow you can leap. Just what will you do today? Because anxiety is a real thing. But what do you do today to sit you higher than anxiety? All that is preparation, right? You fear you're gonna be late, you might want to start getting ready 2-3 hours before instead of an hour before, right? You fear you're gonna say the wrong thing, you might want to prepare your talking points once you figured out you have to speak, right? It's just preparation. Proper preparation prevents piss poor performance, right? And so that is the advice that I have for you. Remind yourself you are loved, right? Remind yourself you are enough at this current state, but then convince yourself that you are a champion, and that champions don't wait for tomorrow when today's already here.
Man, man, that is again, yet again, man, a very powerful, impactful um mindset. And that's what that is, a mindset to embrace. Like I said, living for today, preparing right, like what can you do right now? Quit coming up with excuses, quit running. Because that's when you really think about it, that's oftentimes what distracts us from walking into our purpose, because we think of all other kind of things to do or to say or to convince us
Mm-hmm.
that's contradictory to that purpose, that we never get there. So I'm glad that you said what you said, because it's, again, God can place a vision on you. He can place a calling on you that's clearly monumental, that there's no way you can do it on your own. There's no way it can happen overnight. But what have you done today to take one step closer to that? What have you done today, as you said, to prepare yourself? And what I heard you didn't use these exact words, but it was like showing appreciation of value for the small wins. You like you used the example about working out. Okay, I didn't make it to the gym today, but today I at least had my stuff laid out. I was going to. Now the
Mm-hmm.
next day, let's actually go, and then the next day, let's actually do something while we're there. It's a building
Yeah.
process, but you gotta keep moving. You gotta keep moving. And that's especially the same case that happens when you're dealing with trauma, or challenging times, or being overwhelmed. One of the best ways to deal with adversity is to not wait until the adversity arrives. You have to have a system, a regimen, a process in place that you do every day to stay
Mm-hmm.
ready. Because the thing about life storms, unlike the traditional weather storms that we have, is the weatherman can get on his computer or her computer, and they can navigate the exact moment in time and level of intensity of a storm. When it comes to life storms, we don't have the ability to do that. They can just
Mm-hmm.
come in an instant at a particular point in time that we didn't see coming. We had no way of planning and preparing for that. But the thing is you can actually plan and prepare for that. You can stay, as the Bible teaches us, you can stay armored up.
Yeah.
You can be
Yeah.
ready. It's what are you doing to stay prepared, even if it means being prepared for the storms. What do you do to ready yourself? What is your normal routine and practice every day that you're doing to equip yourself for that unknown instance that's coming? And in addition to, what are you doing for that what you do know about, that God-given purpose that He has revealed to you, that walk that He's revealed to you? What are you doing? What steps are you taking to be a part of that, to make that be
Yeah.
more of a reality? And as you said, not just a dream that just results in good sleep. But we're actually putting it into motion. We're actually taking the steps and the actions in place. So, man,
Man,
I
brother,
love that.
I had a mentor who told me that my next and someone else's next was trapped up in my own obedience. And I was like,
Mm,
oh, wait, what? What are you saying to me? And he's like, yo, there are some things that you're going to have to do. You're going to have to do it if it's going to get you to your next, but not just your next. Cause he said, you know, you come from trauma, Reggie, right? You've had some hard times. So God knows that you could take a lot of punches and be
mm-hmm.
okay, but somebody else's next is still trapped in your obedience. Somebody who's not as resilient, right? Someone
Mm,
who's not as wrapped in their faith, that they're waiting on you to do what you were assigned to do to pull them out, right?
yes.
And I saw that true with my book. So this is like spoiler alert. I finished my first ever book in 2016. Your brother, first ever book. And I refused to put that book out because by the time I finished it, it was so vulnerable. It was so just raw, right? And I can tell you the name of it because I got it copywritten, but it was called Self-Doubt to So Dope. Your freedom lies within, because I just launched my company, the So Dope Network. And someone told me I can't be Reggie So Dope anymore because it's unprofessional. Right. And so my brain said, well, how do you turn something unprofessional into a profession? I named my company after it. So don't you tell me what I can't do.
Right.
Right. And so, man, but that book, it looked at all the places in my life where I had insecurities, where I just needed help and didn't know how to ask for it. And I explore those things. Right. So it's self-doubt in religion, self-doubt in school, self-doubt in my gifts, self-doubt in my relationships. I mean, I explore all that. Right. I didn't put that book out because I was just like, it's too vulnerable. I was literally crying as I'm wrapping up. But God was like, nah, but I told you to put a book out. Right.
Mm,
And so I started to lose things because of my lack of obedience. And so finally, 3 years later, 2019, I said, all right, this book is still too vulnerable, but I'm going to start a new book. Right. And that what became Embracing Your True Colors. Now, that book just released in 2023, because every time I got motivated and I started writing, I started to feel imposter syndrome. Oh, I'm too young to have a book. The things that I'm writing is too vulnerable. There's not a book like this, because the book is kind of choose your own adventure, right? Where if you want to go chapter by chapter, page by page, you can do that. But each chapter is a different color, because each color is a
mm,
different. So red is the hard truths, blue is the self care, green is wellness. So you might be feeling black, right? You may want some vulnerable words. You may not want hard truths right now. You can
mhm.
just jump to the black chapter, right? So you
Okay.
don't have to read the book traditionally. And I was like, man, who makes a choose your own adventure book? So I started to a self-help book at that. So I started to have these doubts. And so it took me from 2019 to 2023 to release this book, because I let the doubts creep in and I'd stop. And God was like, okay, well, I'm gonna take this away then, because I told you a thing. I told you, so I'm gonna now do what I do as God until you are obedient. So I'll tell you that story. So when we met each other in Texas, that was coming from a terrible lashing I was having from God, where I was not working on my book. I was doing everything but, so I lost everything. I lost my jobs due to COVID. I lost my mind. I lost my finances. I mean, all my credit cards was maxed, right? I was actually there living with a friend because I had lost so much that I just needed to go somewhere else and restart. And in the process of restarting, I said, I have nothing else to do but write. I've already
Mhm.
lost my mind. I've already lost my home. I lost my jobs. So that I might as well write. And as I started to complete this project, six-figured opportunity started to find me. And now this is a year later, book's out. The book has made, and not just made me money, the testimonies that has come across my emails, my social medias, brother, because of this book. Someone told me this is the first time I've ever felt sane in my life
Mm.
because of this book that God told me to put out almost 10 years ago.
Man, man.
So that's to wrap that, man. Listen, if my words are not motivational enough, just know that your son's next may be wrapped up in your obedience. Your nephews, your nieces, your daughters, your co-worker, Joe Blow from up the street. Someone's next is trapped in your obedience. So you have to do something. You have to face the challenge. You have to, because now you're prolonging possibly millions of lives,
Mm.
all because you're sitting there.
Wow. 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 And I'm so glad that you shared what you just shared, not only because of the power in what you said, but it made me go back to when you and I met. And I remember, at the event that we were at when we were concluding, that was one of the things that you and I talked about. Let's say, hey, man, we need to talk, because you were like asking me about, you knew I had written a book as well. And
Mhm.
you were like asking me about, hey, I need to find out from you, what to do, kind of. And I wasn't really thinking about, what you just shared. Like that
Mhm.
was the struggle that you were going through. And it's just interesting, this is kind of where the divine connections come in, how God positions you amongst people. Because as you were sharing that story, I was playing the same thing that went on in my head when I first was told to write a book. When that was placed on my spirit, that was back in 2012.
Mhm.
And that was following, it was triggered from my mom's passing. And I remember, making the decision, okay, I'm gonna write this book. And I went through some of those same things that you spoke about, who's going to read this, not that I couldn't write, but it's like, who's going to read this? Can I really pull this off? Cause that was not something that was on my quote unquote bucket list to do or anything like that. In fact, it was, the whole writing of a book was something that my mom wanted to do, but she never got a chance to do it prior to her passing. And then here it was, it's placed on my spirit that like maybe she wasn't supposed to write this book. Maybe I was supposed to do
Mhm.
it. And that's what triggered it. And I remember, just as you stated, writing a little while, then getting away from it. Writing a little while, then getting away from it. And next thing I know, weeks turned into months, months turned into years. So this was years of a process of putting a book together that God told me to write a long time ago. It wasn't that I was experiencing writer's block or any of that. I knew exactly what to say. I mean, when I wrote, the wheels were turning and the words were coming out like without struggle. But yet it was taking me years. And then there was a moment in time that I would experience something in my life that I had not experienced before that shook me. It shook my world. It was, to the point to where I was like in danger. At least that's the way I felt, in danger of experiencing a great loss financially. And after I had my moment in that situation, I paused in it and I just thought, and I was like, okay, I hear you. And it was God's way of, and God knows us. He knew that if he shook me up a little bit, he rattled my comfort, my place of comfort, that might get my attention. And it did. And immediately after I, was going through that situation, I was like, let me get back to writing the book. And it was from that moment that I went on ahead to finish writing the book. And then, of course,
Mhm.
as you know, when you're writing a book, it's not just getting the words on the paper is just the first part. Then you got to go through the editing process. Then you got to figure out what your cover is going to look like and colors and things like
Mhm.
that, and who you're going to get it printed from and all that. It's a lot that goes into it, not only from a time perspective, but also from a financial perspective. And so, it's just beautiful when you, like I said, when you refer to that process about how God said, where you spoke specifically, you were speaking about the need to be obedient.
Mhm.
When you're not obedient, God can be patient with you, but especially if it's something that he's calling you to do, that he's saying to you that I'm just not asking you to write this book just so you can go around and tell people that you wrote a book. You have some people that I have assigned to you that you haven't even met yet. I've assigned you some folks that you have not met yet, that your book, that your telling of your story is going to be such that, unlike you, who's pretty strong willed and able to handle those blows and those punches, they're not going to be able to handle it. But because you've handled it,
Come
they're
on.
going to be inspired and encouraged by you. And what seemed to be impossible for them to do, they're now going to be able to achieve it as well. But it's only going to happen because of you. You got to complete in obedience your part of it so you can bless the other people
That's
that
it.
you haven't met yet,
That's it.
you know? And then it was like, so, I mean, so for me, that was the book moment. And then even with us here today on a podcast, again, this was never a part of something that was on the bucket list to do. But I had another moment of shaking. God had to do something to rattle me. And I didn't know how to receive that. I didn't know what to do. But then all of a sudden, and I'm saying all of a sudden loosely, places on your spirit, do a podcast. I had been on one podcast, maybe two as a guest. I had never done one. So what is that supposed to look like?
Mm-hmm.
So he connects me with somebody that tells me, okay, well, make sure you have a good mic and a good camera and some good headphones. So I say, okay, so I get a mic and I get some headphones. I already had a laptop, I already had a camera. Okay, so now what I do? I come up with a name for it. And now I got to have some people to come on. Like, how do I get them? So I just start writing down names, and through the grace of God, as I'm writing down the names and I'm reaching out to these people, because I made this big list of names, really only expecting less than half, maybe a third, maybe if I'm lucky, to say yes. But then all of a sudden, God says, no, those names that you wrote down, 95% of them are going to say yes. Oh, for real? I
Well,
mean,
man.
my podcast came out in August of 2023. I'm not even a year old in a podcast, and I'm in season 2, and I'm well over 100 episodes in. So I'm like, everybody's saying yes, and I've never done this before, and they're trusting me to come on here and share some real raw, personal stuff. Some of these people I've known for decades, and they're telling me that I've never told anybody this before, but I'm gonna come on your platform and talk. Again, it goes into, it's not about me bragging about anything, but it goes into when you're obedient to what God is telling you to do. He's telling you for a reason, not only for you to be blessed, but he's saying there's some people you got to bless. There's some people that need to be healed. There's some people who need to, as you spoke of earlier, there's some people who have never vented before. And your platform is going to be the first time that they vent. Something they've been carrying around for years. Some of them since childhood. And you, of all the platforms, of all the venues that they could have ever been on, your platform is going to be where they vent. And they're going to be healed. And they're going to get, as you talked about earlier, the text, the phone calls, the people who are saying, man, when I heard your story, when I read your book, when I saw that you said this, not only did I not know that you were going through, but you have no idea how that made me feel. You have no idea how it changed me, those are the things that manifest themselves when we walk in obedience. And so that's why, again, I'm riding on this, because the fact that you brought that up is such an important concept that we have to embrace. And again, something that I continue to work on and learn, to quit dragging your feet. When God says do, you just do. Don't worry about you don't understand. Just do it. And he's gonna make sure you got the resources. He's gonna make sure you got the covering.
Everything.
You just need to do, and let him worry about all the particulars. Just do. And so that's just, again, man, this is powerful stuff that you shared there. And I just had to feed off of that, and just to reinforce what you said, because it's not only is the truth, but it's just so necessary for us to grow and walk in our purpose, and realize that these things that God places on us, these visions, if you will, it's bigger than us. It's bigger than us. We were created to serve. And, and God never said it was going to just be one person or two people. There are millions that we have the potential to impact, and I know that may seem crazy in worldly terms on the surface. We may not, how is that possible? It's possible when God is in it. It's definitely possible. So yeah, good stuff, man. Good stuff. So Reggie, man, I have thoroughly enjoyed having you on the show, man. The stories that you've shared, the wisdom that you've imparted in us, man, it has been invaluable. I mean, just priceless. I mean, I've been captivated by everything that you've said, man. You've just given me, it's just a whole new layer added layer, if you will, of respect that I have for you and your journey. All of that, man. I'm so thankful that we were able to make this happen. I know I've been blessed. I know my listeners are going to be blessed as a result of what you have shared. But as is customary here on the Blessings in the Streets podcast, before I let you go, I do want to take an opportunity, man, to love on you, to celebrate you, to acknowledge you. So please, if you would, share with us anything that you got going on right now, or maybe that's coming up down the road, that we can just acknowledge and celebrate people, how they can connect with you and follow what it is that you're doing and what you got going on. Please share that with us at this time.
Absolutely. Well, folks can follow me on social media. Instagram is Twitter is Reggie, so REGGIE _ so dope SODOPE. Reggie Bates on Facebook. Please follow my podcast and my brand. My company is Sick Discussion, so it's PSYCK discussion.com. It's a lot of people think it's psych discussion, which was our play on words. The English language is so crazy that if it was an H on the end, it'd be psych, but it's a K, so it makes it sick. And we call it sick discussion because we say the world is sick, but good conversation is the cure. So please check out our conversations. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all podcasting platforms. We have videos on YouTube. If you go to my YouTube channel, you can either find Sick Discussion or the Sick Network, PSYCK. You'll find my other YouTube shows. So we have a show called The Sick Code, which is like the guy code and the girl code from back in the day. It's just our version of it. You'll find videos of people playing our card game, which you can purchase on our website, sickdiscussion.com. And then lastly, y'all, my book is out. It's called Embracing Your True Colors. It's a book of reflections to stay afloat. You can get it from Amazon. You can also get the ebook from Amazon or Kindle, but you can also get the physical copies, Amazon, my website. Y'all just keep praying for me. But I mean, gigs are coming. Speaking gigs have been coming through like crazy. If you are someone looking for someone to either do a keynote, a workshop, work with young people, work with old people, stubborn people, humble people, it don't matter. You know, God has given me a gift, and we have been cooking and we've been changing lives. So just reach out to me on all of those platforms, and we can continue to do this thing called life together.
Love it, love it. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. You know how to connect with this brother. If you've been paying any close inkling of an attention of the things that he said, you know that there's something that he has to offer, something that he has to provide for you or somebody that you know that could be benefited by his great works. And man, I'm just excited and happy for you. I'm glad what God is already doing in your life and what God is going to continue to do. I'm looking for more, man, and please know that anytime you want to come back on the show, you're more than welcome to do so to cover other conversational topics. It has been truly, truly a pleasure having you and just catching up with you. It's been a little while since we last chatted because you've been a man on the move and everything, and I respect and understand that. I'm glad I was able to get squeezed into your schedule, but nevertheless, man, it has been truly, truly a pleasure. And for my listeners, if you've enjoyed the content for the show today, please subscribe, please share, please like, please comment, because this is what the Blessings in the Streets podcast is all about. We want to inspire, we want to encourage, we want to uplift. We're being vulnerable and authentic in the sharing of our stories so that you have some insight as to one, knowing that you're not the only one that's going through, but also understanding that, as my brother Reggie spoke to, you can get knocked down, but you don't have to stay down. It's only a knockout if you stay laying down. So you can overcome these adversities. You can overcome these storms of life. And in fact, you should actually embrace the storms as they come, because if God is allowing them to come through, that means he has something for you. He's something he wants you to glean and learn from those experiences so that he can position you in such a way, again, to be a blessing and to receive the blessings that he has in store. He has us all mapped out. A life-changing game plan is in play that he wants us to experience the full abundance of. But it starts with us. We have to be willing to receive and accept. So if you don't have a relationship with God, I'm here to tell you it is the best decision that you will ever make. Not telling you something that I heard, not something Reggie's telling you that he heard, but just telling you something that we know from firsthand personal experience. God loves us unconditionally. He wants nothing but the best for us. So receive that, embrace that. Quit trying to do life by yourself. Quit trying to carry all the weights and the burdens, and quit worrying about pleasing people. And and doing everything that everybody else says that you should do, or everything else that somebody else says you should be. But listen to what God says that you are and what you should be. As Reggie said, you are loved, and you need to embrace that. But no one loves you more than he does. So that said, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, remember that this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. Thank you so much again for tuning in. And until next time, you keep fighting that good fight. Keep persevering. Don't allow those storms of life to get you down. You can still be human and have that expressive moment. But as we said in the song, you can only do it for a day, maybe two. But we can't go longer than that. You got to get up out of that situation and progress forward. And who better to seek than the ultimate problem solver, God himself? He will show you the way to get through those situations and become a better version of yourself, to not only, again, receive the blessings, but to be a blessing to other people. So until next time, you take care of yourselves. Looking forward to seeing you tune in again as we share more stories of encouragement and inspiration. Take care of yourselves and take care.